A very good morning to viewers. Today we are speaking on filing of annual returns, important reconciliations. What are the major issues? With the audit season having peaked now and the date of September 2020 as of now being the final date, we may need to understand and put certain things in place. As far as the annual return is concerned, it's a concept which was borrowed from the erstwhile VAT law. It was primarily meant for negligent taxpayers or those who had got some concessions to not to maintain proper books of accounts, only on turnover basis they could pay taxes, or those who did not maintain proper accounts and only after the year end would finalize their transactions for the past year. This is not a wonderful concept, but we have to understand that India is a heterogeneous country with small entrepreneurs forming a large part of the business. Lakhs of them are there, crores of them, in fact. So, this gave them an opportunity to reconcile and pay taxes as per their finalized financials and documents. In the GST law, unlike the service tax law, the monthly returns cannot be revised. This also is a borrowal from the VAT philosophy, which is not a great philosophy because one can earlier rectify something, therefore, books would be more accurate, at least for those who are making an attempt to keep their accounts. One advantage of this is that even the events after the last date of the year can also be factored in. For example, changes in the contractual arrangement, debit notes, credit notes, which are actually part of business. And since business is based on trust, it sometimes is postponed due to the concentration on business itself, where we say, ye baad mein dekhenge, and that is done maybe a couple of months after the end of the year. One more advantage of this is that rectifications for the past also can be carried out. Errors, omissions, commissions, all these can be rectified in the annual return. Self-assessment is still a dream in India. This is certainly a step towards the right direction for those who are unable to keep regular and accurate accounts. As far as the law is concerned, Section 35(5) requires a registered person who is exceeding limits to get his accounts audited and reconciliation under 44(2). These are the bigger people. Section 44(1) specifies that all registered persons other than the input service distributor or the person deducting tax at source or collection at source, which is applicable to the e-commerce operators, before 31st December or the annual return, he needs to get the annual returns filed electronically, uploaded basically. 44(2) is for the bigger SSEs who need audit to be done, where a slightly more compliance is needed. What are the advantages of going for Form 9 well in time? The industry and trade can concentrate on its business and rectify the errors later. They don't have to be requiring to reconcile every month. This is, of course, for only the smaller SSEs. Larger SSEs, we still recommend a monthly verification reconciliation exercise such that you don't end up paying any interest and you keep your book accounts more accurate. One of the points is that there is a time for the government, for the CBIC, to come back and demand taxes, reversals of excess ITC, etc., for a period of 5 years, and that is from the date of annual return. Therefore, effectively, maybe around almost 6 years. And in these six years, if we make a mistake, Then we add interest, which is at 18% for outward supplies, and for ITC it is 24%. Quite a lot if we look. 6 years into 24% is 120%. It's too much. And 90%, it will also be substantial for the taxes paid. It can also help in optimizing taxes and ITC. When we do this Form 9, we come to know what all mistakes we are making. Those things, those aspects where we may not have applied our mind, we can rectify it. We may be paying too much tax, higher rate, we may be paying a lower rate. Both of them have an impact. ITC, the eligible ITC, you know that the law is developing in ITC, and courts have been time and again ruling in favor of the SSEs due to the fact that GST allows ITC as a right. It's a vested right for you is what the courts say. And therefore provisions which restrict you, rules which are not in line with section 16, these are rulings which keep coming, and they can help us to ensure that we take those credits also. One important aspect in GST is going to be, till now we have not seen much of it, is that we are going to get automated notices. And when automated notices come, there may not be effort to put everything together. Hundreds of notices which may be similar may be received on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, depending on how they are triggered in the system. The self-assessment opportunity which has been given with less time is something which is very important. If we rectify everything, at least we are ensuring some amount of compliance. The departmental audit also takes place at a later point of time, and it can happen after 3 years, 4 years, and at which time there will hardly be any issues because you have rectified all those errors and non-compliances at the time when you were finalizing your Form 9 or the annual return. For the Government of India, there is certainly a increase in collections. You know that when the tax audit was there, coupled with the annual return which is there in GST, it would lead to increased collection with less intrusion. We do not want department to come to our doorsteps, harass us, and then we are forced to follow something. This will also in time to come broad-base the taxation, which is one of the fundamental objectives of GST other than cascading. As far as the society is concerned, it would lead to transparency. You already see that. What is the amount you see on the packet of soap or detergent is the price on which tax would have been paid. That is something which is very important. Or it could be the invoice which could be lower. That is the amount on which taxes are paid. And therefore, automatically, it would lead to possibly lower rates of tax once compliance improves and lower costs. As far as bigger enterprises are concerned, there is more compliance required. And also those who have multi-locational presence, they may need to have a professional with expertise in GST, not just basic knowledge, who can support and add value in Form 9. As far as the deeper aspects of Form 9 and the practical aspects, it would require a professional who is involved in preparation, and therefore I would hand over this session to Akshay, who has substantially more experience in those aspects than me. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So good morning, viewers. I would like to thank Madhukar sir for this brief introduction on the annual returns and also the impact on an overall basis and what one can do going forward with the annual returns. I have given a brief of what the GSTR 9 includes And I have spoken extensively on various GSTR 9 issues in the later part of this session, wherein we will be discussing very interesting issues which have come up in the annual returns. And there may be situations wherein I may take a view which may not be in line with the departmental view or in line with other professional views. But nevertheless, I have been keeping in mind the intention of the law, the ease of taxation, and what is right rather than what is required. It is more on what is right. So, with this, I would like to begin my annual returns deliberation. So, the annual return is bifurcated into 6 parts. The first part is more or less automated, wherein you put your GST number and your name, and the trade name and the legal name gets auto populated. The second part is your outward supplies. So, this is a major table 4 and 5 brings about what all taxes have to be paid based on the supplies that have been made. This also would include the RCM liabilities based on the inward supplies. Part 3 includes the input tax credit, which has been claimed and reversed through various forms. Part 4 is the details of tax paid. This table is very important, and I will get to it in the when we are discussing on the practical issues. Part 5 is the transactions of a financial year which have been disclosed in the subsequent financial year. So, for example, transactions of 1718 disclosed in 1819. Now, with this, I would like to just touch upon one important aspect. For the year financial year 1718, the time limits were extended from the September to the March due date. But similar extensions were not provided for 1819, nor are they expected to come for 1920. Although with the present pandemic situation, this may be expected, but as on date, no extension has been provided. Then the other informations table, which is under part 6, will have your refund HSN details. So these details all have been relaxed, and I will also be discussing upon that in the next slide. The important aspect which we need to consider for part 5 is now assume we are standing in financial year 1819 GSTR 9 returns, and while filing this, there is no option to disclose the transactions of the adjustment entries which are there for the next financial year, which will compensate for part 5 of the previous financial year. So which means that part 5, which was disclosed in 1718, there is no adjustment entry for the same in 1819. So this has to be manually adjusted in the tables in the GSTR 9, or you could also just not disclose these details or deduct these values from the respective tables and can directly give a reason for variance when it is the GSTR 9C, that is your GST audit is being filed. The auditor can give a comment. Now this, as per me, I see this as a flaw in the format, which was expected to be corrected, but as on date has not been. So next we'll get into the relaxations which are available. Of course, this is there only up to 2018-19 financial year. It was also available for 17-18, although I assume most of the viewers would have filed their 17-18 annual returns. Please note these relaxations are not available for the 1920 and 2021, which means to say that certain information which would have been required in certain formats have to be maintained. If not done so, please get working on this immediately, because once September due date is completed, that is your due date for financial year 18-19, which has been extended up to 30th September 2020. Once that is completed, the next due date for 1920 is December 31st December 2020. So you do not have much time. Although even if we expect extension in that respect, most of the SSCs would like to complete their statutory requirements within the time limits. So saying this, I'll get into the relaxations which are available presently. So the amendments, credit notes, debit notes, they need not be shown separately in table 4 and 5 of part 2. They can be shown as net figures with the data. The exempted nil rated non-GST need not be shown separately. All can be consolidated under exempted supply. Please note, when you're doing this, your rule 42 and 43 calculations, that is your ITC reversal calculations, should not be based on just this exempted value. The non-GST supply which are under schedule 3 should not be considered for the purpose of rule 42 and 43. So please keep that in mind when you're doing the ITC reversal calculations. Then next is the most important relaxation that has been provided. That is, you do not need to bifurcate your ITC into inputs, capital goods, and input services. Why is this so important? This is important because the industry as a whole under GST was not ready with the bifurcations of their uh, expenses into these three headings. Therefore, they have given an option to put the entire ITC value under the head of inputs. But this would be required for 1920 and 2021. So the possible way out in this is maintain a purchase register, which is an internal document. And in that, whenever you received your expense invoices from the vendors, the classification can be made under these heads. In addition to this, you can also do an eligibility and ineligibility exercise in that purchase register, and that will also help in your monthly filing reconciliations and also will help in your filing of your annual returns. You can also consolidate the RCM under the which is received by the from the registered or unregistered person under the registered persons table. All your ITC reversals can be consolidated under table 7H. Although TRAN reversals, if there are any TRAN reversals, they need to be shown separately. Option to upload table 8A and table 8D as assigned as signed with PDF in the GSTR 9C. So this was having a little confusion with the general population as to what is the benefit of not filling table 8A to 8D in the GSTR 9 and how does it help in filing a signed PDF while filing the GSTR 9C. For example, your 8D is positive. That means your GSTR 2A is higher than your GSTR 3B. Then in those situations, you need to disclose 8E and 8F. That is credit which was ineligible and not availed, and credit which is available but ineligible. So in these situations, we need to disclose 8E and 8F when 8D is positive. If a person would not like to provide such details of 8E and 8F and would not like to provide these 8A to 8D as a auto-populated details in the GSTR 9, this can be filed through a PDF document which is signed. It need not be digitally signed. It can be manually signed and a PDF can be created wherein 8A to 8D details can be uploaded with the GSTR 9C. Next is the reversals and availment of ITC in the previous year. This is under part 5. So 17-18 details which have been considered in 18-19 financial year. In relation to ITC, the details of under table 12 and 13 can be option is given to not fill such details. The other important relaxation that has been provided is refund information on your inward supplies and deemed supplies. HSN inward and outward details are not mandatory, which means they are being provided as an optional details which need not be provided, and this will reduce significant burden for the viewers who are trying to file their GSTR 9. So this is just the basic of the annual return. Now we'll get into the practical aspects which are being listed. So I will upload the 3 questions which are there. So the first one is GSTR 3B versus 1 does not match. What is the best approach that we can take up? So one thing I would like to inform is when you log into your GST portal, some information is auto-populated in the annual return. That information is auto-populated based on GSTR 1. So unless your GSTR 1 is matching to your GSTR 3B and your books of accounts, do not automatically go ahead with the data that has been filled. In situations where the GSTR 3B and GSTR 1s are not matching, and there is also a difference with the books of accounts, First, you need to identify what is the correct value. Irrespective of what has been disclosed in which document, we need to first identify what is the correct value. Based on that correct value, the GSTR 9 can be filled, irrespective of what has been shown in the GSTR 3B or the GSTR 1. How can I upload GSTR 9? Whether it can be done online or offline? Yes, you have an offline utility. There are third-party softwares which also assist you in filing the return if you would like. Online also, you can directly log in through your GST login details and fill the information online. Next question is where to disclose the additional liability. So this information is on an assumption that there are certain liabilities which are not disclosed in the financial year and were not disclosed at all in the subsequent financial year returns. So if you have not disclosed any liability which was identified at a later point in time, these can be disclosed under part 2 of your GSTR 9 in the table 4. You can add such values. Once you do this, ensure that the same is manually edited and added with the data disclosed under the tax payable column in table 9. So what this automatically does is it will disclose a difference between a tax payable and a tax paid in the table 9. Once you know that there's a difference between these two values and the payable is higher than the paid value, that is required to be paid through the DRC form DRC03 in cash. Next is how to avail the missed out credits. So the question should rather be whether I can avail the missed out credits through my GSTR 9, and the answer is no. You cannot claim credit through the annual returns. The time limit under section 16 it restricts the credit up to the September of the September GSTR 3B due date for the subsequent financial year. So for example, you're filing 2018-19 GSTR 9, which means the time limit to have availed such credit ended on 25th October 2019, which was the due date for the GSTR 3 for the September month. Then the next question is, can I reverse ITC in GSTR 9? Yes, the ITC can be reversed. You can pay tax through the GSTR 9, but you cannot claim credit through the GSTR 9. How do you do this? You can add the value in 7H. Table 7H is your ITC reversal under part 3, and you can reverse the ITC in the annual return. Again, similarly, you have to disclose as a tax payable in your table 9 and pay through DRC03 in cash. So the next question is, do I disclose ITC of financial year 18-19 claimed in financial year 19-20 in the GSTR 9? Yes, you should, but let us take two scenarios. One is the credit which has been disclosed in the returns up to September 2019, and those which have been disclosed in the returns beyond September 19, that is October to March 2020. Now, whenever I say this, the credit I am saying is in relation to 18-19. So what has been disclosed up to September 19 and filed within the due date, that can be disclosed under part 5 of the GSTR 9. But any credit which has been claimed beyond that date is in essence ineligible credit and cannot be claimed. Saying this, I would like to inform that there are various decisions that credit is a vested right. The GSTR 3B was not a valid return and the amendment was made late. The revision options for GST returns are not made available, and therefore the assessee must be allowed to claim the credit for the previous years. Although these case laws have not reached their finality, and the department would dispute the credit claim beyond the time limits. So this would depend on your risk appetite and the amount of credit that has been missed out. So the next issue is what happens to the IGST credit on imports if it is not claimed. So here, saying what I have said in for the last previous question, I would like to inform that imports, the credit on imports is claimed through bill of entry, which is a customs document, and the restriction under section 16(4) is for invoices and debit notes. So whether we can use this loophole in the law that bill of entries have not been covered under section 16(4) and therefore time limit does not apply for the credit in relation to imports. In my view, yes, that can be discussed and taken forward. Again, risk appetite of the viewer is required to be seen. In relation to other credits, I feel most of them will come under the invoice or debit note options and would have to follow the time limits. The next question is, can I issue a self invoice for RCM transaction of 1819 now in August 2020 and avail the credit? Please note this is in relation to the time limit of credit, which I have said was October 2019, your return due date filing of September. So in this situation, I would like to bifurcate again here into two possibilities. One is a registered vendor who is liable under reverse charge, wherein me as a recipient have to pay tax under RCM. And the other scenario is where the vendor is unregistered and I as a recipient am required to pay under RCM. So where the vendor is registered, there is no requirement to raise a self invoice under the law, and therefore the credit in relation to such transaction is linked to the vendor tax invoice, and therefore time limit would apply based on such invoice. Similarly, when we come to a unregistered vendor, the requirement is that the recipient raises a self invoice, and that is the document which has to be used for payment of liability and claiming of credit. And therefore, if I raise a self invoice for 1819 period in August 20, then my credit is linked to August 20 period and not 1819. This was also substantiated based on a press release in July 2019, which has given a similar take on the reverse charge liabilities. Next question is, can we pay tax under DRC 03 separately by utilizing ITC? If you are using a DRC 03 for payment of taxes on a voluntary basis, but not paying under the option of annual return or the GST audit, then yes, you can utilize the ITC. The restriction is when you are filing a DRC 03 under the annual return or the GST audit option, then you will have to utilize cash only. The next question is, I have claimed the capital goods input tax credit and applied for a refund with the option of without payment of tax. So imagine I have a zero rated supply without payment of tax and I've claimed a refund on such zero rated supplies, and that has included my capital goods input tax credit, which as per the law is not allowed. You can claim the credit refund only for input and input services when it is without payment of tax. Although with payment of tax, you can claim the credit on the capital goods. You can claim the refund on the capital goods. Credit is always eligible. Now, once we come to the GSTR 9, how will I disclose such an incorrect or erroneous refund claim in GSTR 9? So in this situation, generally, the erroneous refund will be provided as a departmental notice, and then you will have to pay back with interest and penalty if applicable. Alternatively, if you have identified this by yourself and would like to pay the amount, there are two ways in going about this. Either you pay through DRC 03 or you can pay through the GSTR 3B returns. In these situations, if you have disclosed in the GSTR 3B returns, then in GSTR 9, you can put it as a under the table 7H. But where you have paid under DRC 03, you need not disclose anything in GSTR 9. Although under GSTR 9C, you will have to have an adjustment item under table 12. So this may it has an impact based on how you have disclosed the erroneous refund and how you have paid the refund value back. Next is what happens when we have paid more tax for 1819. So assume there was an error while filing the GSTR 3B returns, and by instead of putting 1 lakh, it has been included as 10 lakhs, and the payment has been processed without identifying such an error. In these situations where the correction has not been made based on your circular 26/2017 within the time limits, then then the tax which has been paid in excess can be disclosed in GSTR 9 as it is, and then you can show the tax payable as the correct value, which is lower, and the tax paid would be disclosed at a higher value. The excess tax paid, that is your 10 minus 1, that is 9 lakhs, that has to be applied as a refund separately. You cannot apply for a refund through the annual returns, it has to be applied separately. What happens if I disclose wrong data in GSTR 9? Can I revise my GSTR 9 returns? The answer is no, you cannot revise the GSTR 9 annual return. So therefore, ensure there's a make a checker policy. You cross verify and re-verify all the numbers. The reconciliations have been performed well in advance before you file your annual returns and your 9C. Another tip is, if possible, file your GSTR 9 and 9C together. That is, once the 9C is finalized from the auditor's end, then the GSTR 9 and 9C can be filed. This will ensure that any additional liabilities the assessee can file in the GSTR 9 rather than it being reported in the annual return in the GST audit. Next is the time limit for the debit note. So as we all know, there is a time limit for the credit note, that is 30th September of the subsequent financial year. But there is no similar time limit for the debit note. So I can raise a debit note whenever I want with the tax. But does this ensure that the credit is passed on to the recipient? Till recently, there was no amendment in the law in respect to the same, but they have added a useful amendment in the law, wherein the credit on the debit note is linked to the debit note date itself. Although this amendment in the law has not yet been notified, it has come around maybe 8 months back, the amendment, but there is no notification which makes it applicable in the GST law as yet. So presently, the credit in relation to a debit note is linked to the original invoice date, and therefore it is quite a draconian provision in that regard, wherein the seamless credit flow, which was first promised by the government, has not really come to light. The next question is, where I have not disclosed sale of land, electricity supply, which is your non-GST supply and your exempt supply in your GST returns, but these are reflecting in your profit and loss accounts. What has to be done? Disclose in your financial, in your GSTR 9 for the first time, and ensure that your ITC reversals have been computed correctly. If this has not been done, there would be a tax impact, not from the outward taxable point of view, but ITC reversal point of view. The next question is, GSTR 2A is showing ITC, but I have not received such goods and services, whether I can claim the credit. This would be more prudent in the present situation after the Rule 36(4) has been enabled. But saying this, credit does not flow from the GSTR 2A. Credit flows from the applicability conditions mentioned in section 16 and 17 of the CGST Act. Therefore, if you have not received the goods and services, you would not be eligible for such credits, even if it has been wrongly disclosed in the GSTR 2A. Next is GSTR 1 in financial year 1920. Discloses 1819 liability. How do we go forward? Now, assuming that you have not paid the GSTR 3B subsequently in the 1920, the tax has not been paid, but the entry has been disclosed in the next financial year. This would not form part of your Part 5 of financial year 1819. So when you're uploading Part 5, ensure that such tax has been paid, because in the subsequent table, in table 14, you would have to disclose tax payable and paid of Part 5. The next point is, Next question is, where a person has paid their liability through GSTR 3B within September 19 instead of GSTR 9, is there any consequence? No, there would not be any consequence. It would just be a disclosure under Part 5. The next question is, how much time would an auditor take to complete the GSTR 9C, and should I file GSTR 9 before my 9C? Like I said earlier, you can file 9 and then file the 9C, although you can await the GSTR 9C to be confirmed. The auditor would take some time to verify the details which are there. Although have been various thoughts upon this, that the auditor requires to verify only the reconciliation. Although in my view, he would also require to verify the compliance under the GST law. So therefore, it would not be a small activity. It may take some time, and therefore ensure that the GSTR 9 is ready well in advance. So presently, as on today, which we are standing on 27th August, uh, your GSTR 9 should be ready by today, so that your auditor has at least 1 or 2 weeks to complete the GST audit, and all the teething troubles of the GST portal and filing and signature can be avoided in the last minute, and you can file your GSTR 9 and 9C 1 week before the due date. So that can be kept as a goal, and the GSTR 9 can be kept ready for the auditor to complete his GSTR 9C. Next question is TRAN 1 credit claim for the financial year 17-18, which has been reversed in 18-19. How do we disclose? Here there are 2 points. One is I have I have reversed the TRAN 1 credit through the DRC 03, or I have reversed the credit through the GSTR 3B. So once you have reversed the TRAN 1 credit through GSTR 3B, then you can disclose under table 7, not under table 7H. There's a separate reversal for TRAN which has to be disclosed. Alternatively, if you have not done it through the GSTR 3B, then automatically you can show the item under GSTR 9C under table 12, and the difference can be provided as a reason that the credit has been reversed. So in GSTR 9, if the reverse is done to the DRC 03, no disclosure is required. TRAN 2, which has been claimed in June 2018 as the due dates were pushed up to 2018, in which year do I show this credit claim? In which GSTR 9 do I show this? In 17-18 or 18-19? The answer is very clear. It is in 18-19. Next is the goods in transit situation. So invoice dated March 2019, but as a recipient, I have accounted and claimed the credit in April 2019. So these are two separate financial years. For the GSTR 9 of 18-19 as a recipient, how do I disclose? So in this situation, in my view, as it is accounted and claimed in April 2019, the disclosure has in the financial year 1920, the disclosure takes place in such year. But there would be an issue with the table 8 reconciliation, that is GSTR 2A versus your GSTR 3B. Although that table 8 is only a disclosure and does not have any tax impact, therefore my view is display it correctly rather than worry about the departmental intervention. If you can explain your variances correctly, I don't think there should be any issues. The next set of questions are whether ITC or outward supplies, which has been shown in GSTR 3B but not disclosed in Part 5 of GSTR 9, is there any remedy? So what this means to say is, assume you have a transaction of 18-19 disclosed in financial year 1920 before September, and the Part 5 of the GSTR 9 of 18-19 has not been updated with these values. Is there any remedy? First of all, if it has not been filled, you cannot revise your GSTR 9. Where there is a tax impact, you can write to your jurisdictional officer of the error made and what are the correct values. The GSTR 9C in the audit, this can be provided as a reason for variances and need not be as an observation or discrepancy which has been noted by the auditor. This should not have much of an issue, although it may have some variances which may be disclosed in GSTR 9C incorrectly, for which comments can be provided. So there has been exemption which has been provided for filing your annual returns. That is, persons below 2 crores of turnover in the previous financial year need not file their annual returns. If I am availing this option, is it fine? Or if I have any variances, should I still file my GSTR 9, as it is only made optional? So in this situation, I feel where there is no change in the values and the GST returns of 1 and 3B have been filed correctly, you do not need to file a GSTR 9. Alternatively, if there are some changes in the numbers and you have not corrected it in the GSTR 1 and 3B, then in my view, it is suggested to file the GSTR 9 even if it is on an optional basis. Next one is, can I make payment through DRC03, which is not under the annual returns? Yes, you can. The difference is that you can utilize your ITC balance, but please note the ITC balance which is being utilized, whether it is has arisen after the liability arose. That is, am I using my future credits for my past liabilities? This is a concept which has to be verified before you are utilizing your ITC under DRC03. With that, I have come to the end of the various practical issues which I have faced during the last 2 years GSTR annual returns. The various reference materials which can be used are the background material which is of the ICAI, which is a very useful book, and the technical guide. Also, we also have a book written by of course, Madhukar sir, Murthy sir, Mahadev, and Ravi Kumar Somani. Actually, I work under Mahadev in the audit division of Irigang and Associates, Bangalore. So with this, I think I have come to the end of the annual returns deliberation. Actually, it was supposed to be a 30-minute video, but has been overshot a little. So for that, my apologies. Thank you for listening, viewers, and have a good day.